A manager got fired from his company, and he immediately threatened that his boss wouldn't live past 3 days. Sure enough, the boss was stabbed to death that same day. Nick was so terrified he didn't know what to do. He actually pulled the knife out to see if it was some kind of prank, but then it hit him. He was now holding the murder weapon, which made him look like the killer, so he tried to put the knife back in. But in the end, he just couldn't do it. He immediately ran out to find a coworker for help, but the knife in his hand and the blood all over him left his coworkers completely stunned. They couldn't believe that the threat he made that morning had actually turned into a murder by lunchtime. Nick realized there was no way he could explain himself. He chose to flee the building immediately, but as soon as he got downstairs, he saw the police had already arrived. Nick thought fast and pretended he had a nosebleed as he calmly walked out. He made his way to a bridge and tossed the murder weapon into the river, but a police officer happened to fish it right out. The unlucky Nick saw this and immediately took off running. That night, he called his mother.
I'm gonna try to make my way to Mexico, where I will remain until I can prove my innocence.
After washing the blood off himself, he went to the bus station planning to escape.
$36 get me.
Who's there?
Alright. How far will this get me?
There you go.
Thank you.
Nick was ready to flee through the night, but he never expected to run into the actual killer at the station. The killer noticed Nick staring at him and suspected Nick might be following him. Terrified, the killer stepped on the gas and sped away. But what he didn't know was that Nick couldn't even see him. The car window glass had been installed backwards, so Nick was just admiring his own handsome reflection. Just as Nick was about to fall asleep, the driver reminded him it was time to get off. Nick was instantly confused. He hadn't reached his destination yet. It turned out the ticket seller had stolen his watch and only gave him a half-distance ticket. The driver felt sorry for him and kindly mentioned that Mexico wasn't too far from here. Just cross 3 mountains, swim across 4 rivers, and walk another 300 kilometers, and you're there. Then he dropped Nick off in the middle of nowhere. Just like that, Nick walked on his own 2 feet for 3 days and 3 nights. When he was thirsty, he ate wild fruit. When he was hungry, he chewed on poisonous mushrooms. But this man who had been unlucky his entire life suddenly stumbled upon a Jeep. What he didn't know was that the killer had left it behind. He pulled out some wires from under the steering wheel to hotwire it, but quickly realized the keys were already in the ignition. Nick drove the Jeep to a motel to rest. The motel owner happened to see a news report about the killer fleeing in a black Jeep. After Nick went upstairs, the owner quietly called the police. Back in his room, Nick also saw the same news. He couldn't figure out how the police knew so much about him. He had only just stolen the car, and it was already on the news. Equally confused was the killer in the room next door. He had clearly abandoned the car, yet it had mysteriously appeared downstairs. A swarm of police surrounded the motel. Nick assumed they were there for him. He wrapped a towel around his head to disguise himself. But the police took one look at his build and knew he wasn't the real killer, so they let him go.
Yes. That's him! Ha!
Nick shouted that he wasn't the murderer and randomly pointed behind the police, saying the killer was right there. As it happened, the real killer had just walked out the door. The police looked in the direction Nick pointed and spotted the actual killer. Both sides immediately opened fire. Once Nick had drawn their attention away, he took off running. Hearing gunshots behind him, he assumed they were shooting at him and started running in a zigzag pattern to dodge the bullets. The killer, being a true professional, was able to return fire while leaping from the building without missing a beat. He landed firmly on top of a car, hijacked a police cruiser, and fled the scene. Meanwhile, Nick ran all the way to the train tracks, planning to hop a train and keep running. He stood on a rock and waited for the right moment to jump on. After a bit of a struggle, he managed to climb aboard. The killer watched Nick disappear into the distance. He realized he was dealing with a real pro. He called his employer and said he had run into an expert. The employer, who was Nick's coworker, said Nick was nothing but an idiot and couldn't possibly be some kind of genius. Yet no matter where the killer went, Nick somehow found him with pinpoint accuracy. The killer was now convinced Nick was an elite federal agent. He believed the only way to be safe was to eliminate Nick. Meanwhile, a train station worker found Nick unconscious. It turned out Nick had eaten sausages on the train that were 20 years past their expiration date. Fortunately, after being rushed to the hospital, he was revived. The doctor asked him his name. Nick glanced around the room and made one up on the spot.
Enema Bag Jones.
That's not your name, you're simply lying to me.
The killer had also tracked Nick to the hospital. Nick was worried about getting caught again, so he stole the clothes of the patient next door and tried to sneak out. He ran right into the killer, who was disguised as a doctor. The killer was about to make his move when a police officer appeared and walked toward them. Both of them assumed the cop was coming for them. But the officer completely ignored Nick and mistook the killer for a doctor. He said his colleague was in critical condition and begged the killer to come save him. The killer couldn't refuse, so he went along with it. Once inside the operating room, the killer put his special skills to work.
Clear. And...
Sure enough, within seconds, the patient was dead. The police officers kept comforting him, telling him not to blame himself because he had done his best. The killer immediately told the police he needed a moment alone,
He's taking it really hard.
then quickly fled the scene. Meanwhile, Nick had walked a long distance and was extremely dehydrated. He spotted a coin-operated water dispenser and just stuck his mouth right on it. He finally drank his fill. Then he flagged down a car on the road for a ride. The girl said she could give him a lift, but she had a small issue when driving and hoped Nick wouldn't mind. Nick said of course not. It's not like anyone was going to die. It turned out Lisa had severe narcolepsy. She noticed the wound on Nick's face and insisted on taking him home to treat it. She told him to stay until he healed up. Nick was deeply touched. He decided to help Lisa fix the fence she had just crashed into. Shortly after, Lisa's father came home and was happy to see the fence repaired.
Hey, who fixed the fence?
Who are you?
When the father learned his daughter had taken in a drifter, he looked troubled. He said his bank was on the verge of closing and the family could only afford to eat canned meat every day. But Nick said he had a master's degree in business and could get the bank running again. He didn't even want a salary. All he needed was food and a place to stay. The father immediately agreed to take Nick in. The next day, Lisa's father brought Nick to the bank. Just then, a man showed up causing trouble. He was a local rancher who was hoping the bank would go under so he could take it over. When he saw the bank had even hired someone new, he couldn't help but mock them. That evening, a murder case video was playing on TV. The rancher saw footage of Nick holding a knife and was certain Nick was the killer. He immediately contacted the newspaper to run a story claiming the bank was harboring a murderer. This would surely shut the bank down for good. Sure enough, the next morning, everyone rushed to the bank demanding their money back. The killer also heard the news and snuck into the bank. But he didn't expect the rancher to have also called the police. The killer was stunned. Everywhere he went, there were cops. The more he thought about it, the more convinced he became that Nick was a master detective. Lisa assumed the police were there for Nick, so during the chaos, she pulled him out through the back door. But they didn't get far before the killer caught up. The killer planned to smuggle Nick across the border to Mexico and specifically demanded that Lisa drive. Nick was extremely anxious when he heard this.
Oh, bad idea alert.
On the road, Nick kept complaining that the wanted poster made him look too ugly. The killer punched him for that. Just then, Lisa's narcolepsy kicked in again.
I tried to tell you. But those of us that chose to wear seatbelts are fine.
The car was wrecked and couldn't drive anymore. A wave of police caught up to them. The killer realized there was no escape, so he dragged Nick and Lisa up to a high point and threatened the police, saying the agent was in his hands now and asking if they dared to shoot.
Sorry about that. One of our boys got a little overzealous.
All right, but if one more cop shoots me, I'm gonna kill at least one of my hostages.
We don't want anybody to get hurt.
I'm already hurt.
Right. We don't want anybody else to get hurt.
How does that help me?
I don't know. Tell the snipers to get in position.
I can hear you.
Sorry.
While the killer was negotiating, Nick quietly jumped behind him to draw his attention. Lisa immediately fought back against the killer. The killer lost his balance and fell off the edge. Luckily, he grabbed onto a board. Nick even tried to step forward to save him. But the killer eventually slipped and fell. It turned out the high point was only about 15 feet up. The killer was arrested on the spot. Because Nick helped catch the real murderer, he received the $1 million reward from the police. After being cleared of all charges, he decided not to leave. He planned to use the $1 million to save the bank. In the end, Nick and Lisa lived happily ever after. This movie is called The Wrong Guy.